Hey guys, it's Candace.
And it's Elena.
And you're listening to Cousins on Crime.
Same answer every week.
Good. Same old. Well, I mean, maybe we should just, put our hands together and dive right in.
Okay.
To this story, because this is a real crazy one.
Ooh, so buckle up.
Cray. Buckle up. If you are driving, I hope you are already buckled up.
Yes.
If not, this is your reminder to do so. This is the story of the mysterious disappearance of Robert Hoagland.
Oh.
And Lena, you may not remember this, but I sent you this case last December.
Okay, I don't remember it. A lot has happened.
Well, it might start clicking with you. But just hang on to your butts. Okay. Robert Hoagland, who everybody knew as Hoagie. So I'll call him Hoagie in this story.
I like it.
Everyone called him Hoagie. His wife, his friends, his family. That's so cute. Hoagie met his wife Lori at the Culinary Institute of America, where they both trained as professional chefs. I am starting the story here because there's not much information about his upbringing and things like that.
That always makes me so sad because I love to tell about the person, about the victim, and it's like, give me more. I want to know more about this person.
I know. I don't know much about his family. So yeah, I'm pretty much starting the story. It's kind of a long story, so maybe it's best I'm skipping all that stuff. But he and his wife, like I said, met at the Culinary Institute of America. They both trained as professional chefs. They ended up having a baby and got married. Their baby was actually present at their wedding, which they thought was really cool. And even their oldest son thinks that was really cool that he was at their wedding. Then they had 2 more sons. And they settled down in Newtown, Connecticut. Hoagie had worked in the restaurant business for years. But he got really burnt out. It's long hours. You have to get there really early in the morning before the restaurant even opens to prep food, and then you stay late.
Yeah, a lot of responsibility.
So he started to... Exactly. And, I mean, I've been a waitress, but I imagine chefs have to be there longer.
Right.
And being a waitress is like... long hours, it feels like. So he started to feel like he was really missing out on his kids' lives. He's really devoted, and his children remember him being a devoted father. They said he'd put everything aside to be there for them, and it didn't matter what he was doing. It was sports or homework or whatever. He would put whatever he was doing down and be there for his kids. And so even still, him being like that and being present for his children, he still felt like that being in the restaurant business was not conducive with that type of lifestyle. Like, he wanted to be even more present than he felt like he was being for his family. So he made a huge decision to completely change his career.
Wow.
When his kids were little. I can imagine that's really intimidating when you've got a family to support, but he was confident in his new path. So in 2001, he became a real estate agent, or a real estate appraiser, and he liked it. He was able to have a flexible work schedule and attend all of his son's games, be home for dinner, and go on family vacations. It was great. And it was just what he wanted. This is what he wanted. So maybe he didn't love the career, but it provided him a balance that he was looking for. And he did that for years. He was able to watch his boys grow. And in 2012, his buddy, who was an attorney, said, "Hey, I need some help at our law firm if you're interested." And it was just like clerical work. And he was like, "Yeah, I can do that." He had no experience in law, but it was pretty straightforward work, filing, little typing things here and there.
Yeah.
So he signed on to do that. On Sunday, July 28th, 2013, Hoagie got up and he headed out to his favorite breakfast joint. He picked up a bag of bagels and then he stopped at a gas station. He bought something and then went home. He and his son ate breakfast together and hung out. They were having some guy time because his wife was actually out of the country with a friend on a girls' trip. Yeah, she was returning that day, so Hoagie was planning to pick her up from the airport later in the day. He mowed the lawn while his son Max took his car to run some errands. Max had recently moved back home to live with his parents. He was arrested in 2012 for shoplifting so that he could sell the merchandise and buy drugs. Yeah, and he had moved in with his grandma shortly after the arrest. And it got to the point where she just grew really tired of his antics. She's like, "You know what? I've done this before. Like, you need to go back to your parents' house. Like, I'm a grandma now, and I should be, like, buying you ugly Christmas sweaters, not, like, getting mad because you're coming home too late." So she just got tired of his behavior. So back to his parents' house he went. And his parents were happy to have him back home, but they were really concerned that he was still getting himself into trouble. They're like, "You've got to knock it off.
Yeah.
This is, just stop.
Something's got to change."
So Hoagie and Lori kept in frequent contact while she was away. And the day before she was due to fly home, she sent him one last email just being like, "Just want to make sure you're, to pick me up, where to pick me up, what time." And they had discussed this multiple times before, like him picking her up. She knew he was picking her up, but it was just one of those, just want to confirm, make sure that you don't forget it's tomorrow. And so Monday rolls around, and I think earlier I said he was picking her up that day, but he was actually supposed to pick her up the next day on Monday.
Okay.
So scratch that. Pretend I didn't say that. Monday rolls around, and Lori arrives at the airport right on cue, like she said she was. At the time, she said she was. She got her luggage. She's probably jet lagged, I'm sure. She had flown in from Turkey. So she calls Hoagie to let him know she's there. "I don't see you." Well, he didn't answer. She heads outside to see, maybe he's already outside waiting for me. Well, he wasn't there. So she called him again and again. He didn't answer. And at this point, she's pretty pissed off. Like, she's thinking, he forgot.
Yeah.
And he didn't respond to that last email, so she didn't think much of it at the time. She just thought maybe he didn't see it or whatever. Right. And again, it was just a confirmation email, so she wasn't worried about it. Yeah. But she's thinking, like, did he think I was coming home a different day? So she called the law firm that he worked at and asked to speak with him. And his boss was like, "He didn't come in today. And what's even weirder is he didn't call to let us know that he wasn't coming in." And that just wasn't like him. He wasn't that type of guy. This annoyance that she was feeling really kind of started to shift into worry,
Yeah.
So she got a cab and she went to her stepsister's house. They started calling family and friends, trying to see if anyone knew where he was. Is he with anyone? Maybe he left his cell phone or his cell phone died or whatever. Everyone says, "No, we haven't seen him." And when Lori reached out to his friend Dave, he said he's not with me, but he told me that you were coming home today. Like, how was your trip? And, she's like, yeah. I gotta go. I've gotta find him. So now Lori knows he was, in fact, planning to come pick her up because he had told people that's what he was doing, and he had made plans to do that. So now she contacts the Newtown Police Department that day, which was July 29th, because none of this feels right. This is all wrong.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So right away, police find something. They had run Hoagie's plates, and they located his car.
Oh.
It was parked in a really rough part of town, known for drug activity. An officer approached the car, was late, and he found Hoagie's son Max in the driver's seat, but no Hoagie. The officer called Lori and said, well, I found your husband's car and I'm with your son. He's here buying drugs, so I'm arresting him. And I think under any other circumstance, the officer may have just been like, go on, get out of here. Don't come back here. Because they lived in Connecticut in a nice part of town, you know. It wasn't a rundown car. You've got this kid who clearly does not belong in that part of town. But the father is missing. Yeah. And he's in his car. So they were like, look, I'm going to arrest you and take you in. That way I can definitely question you and see if we can find anything out. Before he was arrested, though, Max was able to speak with his mom. She asked him, where's your dad? And he said the last time he saw him was when he was mowing the lawn on Sunday, the 28th. Max said, I borrowed his car to go run some errands, and when I got home, he wasn't there. And I just thought, maybe he stepped out. I tried calling him. He didn't answer. And the next morning when I woke up, he wasn't there. He said I tried calling him again and again. He didn't answer and didn't get back to me. So
I just took his
I'm not sure why Max... Yeah, I don't know why he, at that point, was thinking like, well, I don't know where my dad is, but I'll just keep on keeping on,
And I wonder if the yard was actually even mowed.
It actually was,
okay.
And I'll get to that. Yeah. So, yeah, that's interesting that you bring it up. You're all about the details, Lana, and I love that about you. But if it was me and my dad was like, my dad is pretty much a creature of habit, and if he wasn't there and he just wasn't there and not answering my calls, like, that would concern me, but this is Max we're talking about, and he's not in a great place in his life, so I'll give him that. Max told police that there was an incident that he should probably mention. His dad had 2 computers, and he had locked them in a car in the garage, so Max would not try to sell them for drugs.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of sad that you gotta lock up your stuff, but here we are. Right. When Max moved back in, Hoagie didn't want to just cut him off because he loved his son. This is, I feel like, a cycle that most parents of addicts fall into.
Right.
And not even addicts. I think parents enable their children without meaning to because you love your child.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm not just going to leave them out in the cold. I'm not just going to kick them out of the house. So it becomes a cycle. And he didn't trust Max, but he loved him.
Yeah.
So he still gave in. And they had tried to lay down the law when Max moved back home and was like, look, you're going to ship up or shape out. No, you're going to shape up or ship out. But Max was still up to no good, And he found the key to the car that the hidden computers were in. Of
course, because when there's a will, there's a way.
Exactly. And you know what? He did the very thing that Hoagie was afraid of. He took those computers and he sold them for drugs. Well, when Hoagie found this out, he was pissed, naturally. And he was like, we're getting them back. So put your shoes on. He said, take me to whoever you gave them to and we're getting them back. And so they went to this really shady underbelly part of town. Oh, no. And apparently, Hoagie's friend Dave said that they were armed with lead pipes just in case, like, anything went down. And Dave told Hoagie, like, dude, are you crazy? Like, don't ever do that again. You're not this career criminal. Like, this is not your scene. Wow. You can't just go, like, you just wash your hands of the computers and then that's it. Like, punish him and be done with it. But you don't go do stuff like that. Like, that's terrible. So now police are wondering if Hoagie's disappearance had anything to do with this whole thing.
Gotcha.
You know, did someone come after him after this and was like, now you know where my lair is, and you know, like, this looked really like a promising lead. Mm-hmm. So Lori at this point was still at her stepsister's house this whole time. She wasn't sure if she should return home that night. She was a little worried to go back there because Hoagie's missing. She didn't know where he was, if it was safe to go back. And now this whole story about the computer, trying to get the computers back, like, if this was foul play, what if somebody was waiting for her? So she ended up staying with a friend that night, and the next morning she was like, I want to go back home because I need answers. Like, I need to have a look around, see if I can find anything. So she saw his loafers sitting there on the floor. And those were the shoes he wore all the time. Everybody says those were his shoes. Like, he wore them around the house. He wore them to run errands. Like, those were his shoes. So the fact that his loafers were still sitting there was weird and eerie. She found his clothes in the dryer that had recently been washed. His cell phone, house key, medication, all just sitting there in the house. She looked, dug and dug and dug. His passport was even still there. So it's not like he just flew to Turkey to surprise her, something crazy like that. She didn't see his wallet, though, or his car key. But Max was the last person with his car key, so that didn't really seem odd to her.
Right.
In the garage, they found the lawnmower.
Oh.
And it had been put away with a pair of sneakers sitting next to it and freshly cut grass blades strewn about. Okay. So they did believe, and obviously they could look at the grass and see if it was cut. So they assumed that he had finished cutting the grass, and it looked like when he was done with that, he showered and, like, washed the clothes he was wearing, because I guess Max told them what he was wearing. Plus, he was seen on CCTV footage at that gas station wearing a white t-shirt and, like, khaki shorts. So those were the clothes that were washed in the washer machine, which is weird, right?
Yeah.
Richard Robinson, a lieutenant with the Newtown Police Department, was assigned Hoagie's case. Lena. The Sandy Hook Elementary is located near Newtown, and their police department was actually part of the responding team just 6 months earlier when the school shooting occurred. 20 children. 20 children and 6 adults were murdered on December 14th, 2012. And despite the fact that we have a new school shooting seemingly every single week, it remains one of the most devastating school shootings in our nation's history.
Yeah.
And I just have to say that things have to change. Like, we cannot keep going on like this.
Yeah.
Dropping our children off at school and holding our breath until we pick them up at the end of the day.
Yeah, and so many parents are now going to homeschool, but I mean, there's just a lot of kids in this world, and how do you keep them all safe?
We just can't do this anymore.
No, I agree.
Like, and while this case isn't about Sandy Hook, and about the shooting, it's extremely relevant because it did happen 6 months before Hoagie went missing. And his case kind of flew under the radar in the wake of this national tragedy. And the town was still reeling. I mean, You remember things like this, and the media still talks about it for months and months after, especially a school shooting. People are up in arms, trying to get laws changed, trying to affect change. So this, the media was still talking about this shooting. So Hoagie didn't really get much media attention. His case really didn't. As a matter of fact, internet trolls started saying, kind of funny he disappeared right after the school shooting. Like, maybe he had something to do with it.
No.
And
to put his name out like that, that's...
Exactly. Well, they had no explanation or no reason why they were making these allegations, but trolls rarely have anything logical to say about anything. Yeah. So, troll's gonna troll. But Lieutenant Robinson was dedicated to this case, and he learned something quite shocking. Uh-oh. Hoagie had disappeared before.
What?
Yeah. In 1994, when his children were young, Hoagie and his wife, Lori, packed up the family and moved to California in search of a dream. They had no plan, they had no place to live, no job, but they had a dream. It took a little while, but Hoagie finally found work as a chef at a country club, and things really seemed to be going well. But one day he headed off to work, and he told Lori, he had he'd be late getting home because they had an event that night, so it was going to be a long one, don't wait up. Well, he didn't come home that night. And the next day, Lori called his work to see what was up, see if he was still there. Maybe he worked all night. Who knows? Yeah. But they were like, he was actually fired 2 days ago.
What?
Yeah. She was dumbfounded because he was going to work.
Yeah.
He was still, acting like he was going to work. He was gone for 3 weeks, Lena.
What?
Before he returned home.
Well, what do you say when you just, when you walk through the door and you're like, oh, hey. Where was he?
He said he went off to try and find work. He was ashamed that he was fired and not being able to provide for his family. After all, he was the one who drugged them out to California to try and find this California dreamin' whatever that he was trying to find with no plan. And back then he wasn't trying to disappear. They feel like he just was ashamed. He felt shame for being fired, and he just thought, I know, I'll just go find work and then come back with money, you know? And then whatever. I mean, he had taken the car. He'd been using his credit card, so it wasn't like he was flying under the radar.
No.
He wasn't trying to be discreet.
Yeah.
They knew he was alive somewhere.
And you know what? The light bulb has gone on in my head. I remember you sending... Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, now they feel like he left with nothing. Like, they don't feel like this was a second time around thing. He didn't take his wallet. He didn't take his cell phone. He didn't take the car.
Right.
They're thinking he didn't leave on his own accord because he left with nothing.
Right, and all these events were happening with his son, and there was motive and...
Exactly. This is all very shady. So, he didn't withdraw all the money out of their bank account or anything and take off with a bunch of cash. Police say, okay, this is weird. We get that he's missing, but just in case, let's retrace his movements before he went missing. Because police are tuning in to certain things that maybe family are not picking up. And, family can say, this is how the house normally looks, and that's out of place. We don't keep the keys there, we keep them there. Mm-hmm. Police wouldn't know stuff like that, but police would notice things that family doesn't notice, And you know how I said at the beginning of the story, that morning he went missing, he went to the gas station and bought something.
Right.
And you questioned me about the lawnmower, but you didn't question me about what he bought at the gas station. I'm shocked
Well,
at
what did he
you.
buy at the gas station?
Well, he bought a map of the eastern United States.
Okay.
Yeah. Police found that he did actually withdraw some money the Thursday before he went missing, but it was only $600. And the thousands he kept in his safe at home were still there. So, $600, I mean, I could go to Target right now and spend $600.
Right.
That's not enough money to start a new life somewhere.
And this
It's
was
just
not that long ago where $600 was like a lot.
Right. Exactly. And why wouldn't he have taken all that cash from the safe at his home?
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's like they knew he withdrew the $600. So why not just go ahead and take that $1,000-something dollars? Because they already know you withdrew $600.
Yeah. If he's going to go on this trip,
Right.
why wouldn't he take that?
Why not just... Yeah, exactly. So, and if he left voluntarily, why wouldn't he have taken his blood pressure medication and his cell phone?
Oh.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, he had blood pressure medication that was just sitting there on his nightstand.
Huh.
That makes no sense.
No.
Like, at least take the bottle of medication.
Yeah.
I mean, so investigators were really feeling on the fence about this whole thing. Like, what might have happened? One day they discover a piece of information that would convince them that he took off on his own accord. I mean, the purchasing of the map at the gas station the day he goes missing. But the family says Hoagie collected maps.
Oh.
He wanted to save maps. Like, he just liked collecting them. He had tons of them.
Huh.
Listen, I collect illnesses. I'm not here to judge.
Everybody has their thing.
Everybody has their thing. Police learned things like this, and then they'd be convinced that he didn't leave on his own. So they were just kind of baffled. Like, they were being pulled back and forth. In the early days after Hoagie's disappearance, Lori had visited her home, but she wasn't actually staying there full time.
Gotcha.
But finally, 2 weeks later, she's like, you know what? It's time to move back home. She was crushed. I mean, was he dead? Did he leave her? Either way, being there leaves her with this feeling of abandonment.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just being in that home was a reminder of that. Mm-hmm. So as she settles into her new normal, this limbo of endless questions, one day she was in their room moving stuff around, and she lifted up this doll that was sitting in a chair. And she gasped. Under the doll was Hoagie's wallet and his keys.
What?
Yeah.
And his keys.
His wallet was there the whole time. They just didn't see it.
Under
it was
a doll.
Sitting on the chair under a doll. And in fact, Lori had remembered that Hoagie used to hide his wallet there so that Max wouldn't steal money out of it.
Oh.
And she said she didn't even think to look there for his wallet. So this whole time, they thought those things were missing, that he had took his wallet, but nothing else.
Gotcha, okay.
And it was there the whole time. So now her heart just sank.
Yeah, now there's even more questions, though.
Exactly. Hoagie and Lori's oldest son, Chris, actually lived in South Carolina. And after learning of his father's disappearance, he headed back up there to be with her. Max was still in jail on trespassing charges. So Chris didn't want his mom to be alone, and he, wanted to help her figure out what happened to his dad. Well, the wooded area around the Hoagland's home was searched. Groups of searchers and even cadaver dogs scoured the wooded areas up to a mile radius, just in case he had wandered off. Mm-hmm. And maybe had an accident, something weird.
Yeah.
Like his wedding ring fell off and while he was mowing the lawn, and then it flinged into the into the woods, and he went to look for it and fell in a hole, something weird. Well, they didn't find anything. A nearby lake and river were searched. nothing. And nothing seemed to be the theme in this case until September of 2013. There was a reported sighting of Hoagie.
Oh.
A man was seen fitting Hoagie's description walking along the highway in Rhode Island with a large backpack. But after following that lead, they were not able to find the guy. They actually even aired Hoagie's case in Rhode Island, hoping that media would dredge up some new leads, or
somebody would say, I've seen him before.
Exactly. Or Hoagie himself would come forward. And this lead was of particular interest to the investigators because when they were looking through Hoagie's search history on his computer, he had actually searched a specific address in Rhode Island multiple times.
What in the world?
Yeah. But they went to that address in Rhode Island and came up with nothing. I don't have any details as to what they found when they went to the address, if it was a residence, if they actually spoke to the person who lived there, but investigators say it was nothing. So, that wasn't the only sighting of Hoagie, though. Someone came forward saying that they saw Hoagie at a grocery store in town, in the town over from Newtown, and then he got into a car with New York plates.
What?
They found footage from that grocery store, and the police and Lori agree that it was not him. The man in the footage he looked similar, but he was taller, he had like a different gait, and it was just another lead that led to a brick wall, essentially. On the 1-year anniversary of Hoagie's disappearance, family and friends released paper lanterns in honor of him. The family moved on as best as they could as the case went cold. The cloud of suspicion regarding his father's disappearance sort of followed Max around. Police, they didn't believe Max had anything to do with it. They really had no evidence to suggest that he was involved. But the shadiness and Max being found in his car and the computer thing.
It is really suspicious.
Like, none of that. It is. And I think the public felt that was really suspicious. Yeah. And, we hear things like, I think my mind goes back to the Gabby Petito case. Like, when we started to learn certain things, and then we learned that, we found him dead in the woods.
Right.
And you're like, what? Explain, please.
Yeah.
It's
Can
like,
I get some...
police... Exactly. Police don't always explain everything to us. And it's not fair.
Yeah.
They keep some details. And I think that's why sometimes public opinion and the court of public opinion can run wild with theories because we don't have all the information.
Right.
And when something looks or feels weird to us, not having all that information, we kind of run with it. But, I think people suspected Max, but there really was nothing to go on there. It was really another dead end. Hoagie's kids went on to grow, get degrees, careers, they got married, and felt that hole, missing throughout it all. All those milestones that they achieved were so bittersweet, and every holiday and birthday, without him there was just tough. But over the years, there were other sightings. They didn't amount to anything either. One sighting was a man who was working in a restaurant in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. There was a tip from a psychic and a medium. And I bet with each sighting, there's that flicker of hope in the family all over again. Like it dredges everything up again.
A punch in the gut.
Exactly. Only for it to not go anywhere and then be let down all over again. And they would never know what happened to him until 2022.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is where it gets wild. According to a press release by Captain Brian Bishop with the police department in the town of Newtown, Connecticut. The department was contacted on December 5th, 2022 by the Sheriff's Department in Sullivan County, New York, to report possible information regarding the disappearance of Robert Hoagland. They said they responded to a residence in Rock Hill, New York, where a man was suffering from a cardiac arrest. The gentleman was actually pronounced dead at the scene, and his roommate told first responders that the deceased man's name was Richard King. They started looking around the place to verify the identity of this man when they came across some papers with the name Robert Hoagland.
Oh.
They searched this name, and they found, whoa, this guy's been missing since 2013 in Connecticut.
Ugh, gives me chills.
Apparently, he'd been living in Sullivan County since November 2013 under the name Richard King.
Why?
Christopher Hoagland, Hoagie's son, told NBC News, "It's pretty confusing. We're trying to handle it right now, to be honest. Haven't really figured out any details." Yeah. Hoagie's body was actually taken to autopsy in Sullivan County, and while I don't have that detailed report, it did indicate no foul play, and he did die of cardiac arrest. So
That poor family.
speculation. I am. Oh, I have so much to say. I have so much to say. But speculation still swirls as to why Robert Hoagland would have just up and left his family. Now we know.
Yeah.
He did up and leave his family. His friend Dave told Investigation Discovery that he seemed stressed in the days leading up to his disappearance. I mean, his son was continuing this bad behavior with drugs and hanging out in the shady parts of town, stealing his stuff. And he was fed up with his job at the law firm, actually.
Oh.
And, yeah, he told Dave that he was planning on quitting soon. But we do know now that he did just walk away from his family, his job, his blood pressure medication, his wallet, everything.
I mean, there's times where
He
I'm
just
like,
walked away.
I just need to get away, but like to actually, since 2013. Yeah, I mean, he got away and he did not come back.
Unfortunately, there is no further information
Oh my gosh.
as to what he was doing the last 10 years. It doesn't appear that he remarried or started a new family or anything because he had a male roommate. I mean, I guess he could have been romantically involved with that male roommate, but there's absolutely no report saying that.
Okay, so this guy wasn't, like, there's no report on what he said.
Yeah, no, it was just a roommate, but it's a possibility. I mean, when you're starting to spiral about why, what was he doing? And police did say that there would be no further information unless the family comes out and
so they may have
talks about
asked this person what he was doing living with him and, you know, what do you know about him? But the police aren't going to air out the dirty laundry for the family's sake.
That's it, because they're saying we need to respect the family's privacy at this time. They're gonna probably want to know what he's been up to the past 10 years. I mean, he obviously was living with someone. He must have had a job.
Yeah.
I mean, he must have had a whole new life, people that knew him. And I don't know if it would provide the family closure to know what he's been doing.
Right.
Or if it would make them more mad. I feel like I wouldn't want to know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a slap in the face to be like, oh, you had a great job and you made great money, or you had a job that you didn't like. Well, you had a job you didn't like here, so why didn't you just stay, you know?
Or maybe if there was some, like, mental illness that, like, took him away.
It's funny you say that. It's like you are reading my notes. There's another explanation for why he could have just up and left. A dissociative fugue. In psychology, we used to call this psychogenic fugue, but it's a state when a person loses awareness of their identity or other information about themselves, like their name, address, autobiographical information. It's a subtype of dissociative amnesia. Symptoms include confusion about a person's identity or the past. Often people experiencing this condition tend to physically wander around in different locations. In fact, the DSM-5 calls the fugue state bewildered wandering. And sometimes this wandering can lead to really far off locations. They're searching for something to be familiar and they end up in another state or sometimes several states away.
Yeah.
But this condition is really rare. The prevalence is 0.2% of the general population that experiences this, but it is more common in adults than children. The onset of a dissociative fugue state is often very sudden and follows a stressful or traumatic event. Many cases of dissociative fugue have associations with marital or financial stress, depression, or often childhood abuse or trauma, a history of being abused. And there may also be a genetic link to dissociative fugue, as most people who experience this also have a parent or a relative who has experienced the same thing.
Interesting.
But with regard to Hoagie, my theory, if you want to hear it, is that him leaving was multifactorial. I think there were elements of his personality that lent him to impulsivity.
Yeah.
Remember how he up and moved his family to the West Coast with absolutely no plan or job prospects, not even a place to live. He just uprooted his family, relocated his wife and 3 young children. You have to have a certain ability to throw caution to the wind.
Yeah, for sure.
Or turn a blind eye to the instability that this might produce in your family.
Yeah.
It's not just you moving.
Let's be realistic. He didn't have a thought of reality.
I got a job in Orlando, Florida. You know this, Lena. And I moved 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
And I was pooping my pants. And it was just me.
It was just you.
I didn't know anyone. I had no friends there. Absolutely. I had a job. I had a place to live that I found on Craigslist, which you don't do that anymore, by the way, kids. But it worked out for me. But, and I was pooping my pants. I didn't have a wife and 3 young children.
Right.
And, I can't imagine just making that type of impulsive decision.
Right.
He also abruptly switched careers. From going to culinary school and becoming a successful chef and doing that for years. And then he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'll just do real estate appraisal.
Yeah.
And then right before he disappeared, he was working at that law firm and he got tired of that as well. So you have these personality elements already in place where you can see these gears shifting in certain directions.
Right.
And then the whole computer thing with Max happened. And it all just came to a head and he was so overwhelmed he just walked away, sadly.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
No.
Because Hoagie isn't around to explain why he walked away. He just left his family with, upon his death, he left them with even more questions than they had before.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
What do you think, Lena?
I mean, really, the thing that I was thinking was the mental disorder, and there's homeless people that you see and you're like, I wonder what brought them to that.
How did you get here?
And some homeless people will tell you that they like living that way. They don't have responsibility. They can just, do what they want or, whatever their reasons are. But some people enjoy living life that way. And maybe Hoagie didn't he was tired of responsibility. Like you said, there was a lot going on with his family, and he just wanted to be like, I don't want all of this responsibility, so I'm going to go. Maybe he lived homeless and then found this roommate to live with. I don't know. It's just, that's really weird. I don't want to.
It is. It's weird that he bought a map. I mean, his family swears that he collected maps, but he bought this map of the eastern United States, which is where he ended up. And the other thing, he didn't go far from home.
Yeah.
That's what twists my noggin about this. He went up to New York. New York and Connecticut, I mean, we're from Texas, where you can drive 8 hours and still be in Texas. After 8 hours of driving, you're still in Texas. You can drive 30 minutes from Connecticut to New York. I mean, I remember when I was 13, we went to stay with my grandparents that lived in Connecticut. And it was like an hour drive into Manhattan. And it was like, I just couldn't believe how we were in another state in an hour.
Yeah.
We were in New York City in an hour. So the fact that he was so close to home.
Yeah. I don't think it's a mental thing. He obviously planned.
I feel like he planned. I mean, he withdrew $600.
Yeah.
Did he feel like that was just enough to get a cab to a bus station to then get a bus and then
Well, and that's why I'm thinking homeless, because okay, I'll take this money to get to where I think I want to stay, and I'll just live homeless and not worry about anything.
Yeah. I mean,
not to say homeless people don't have worries, because they do.
No, you're right. Because there, where you and I are people like, okay, I've got to really think about this. Like, I can't just go and buy this car. That's a huge decision.
Yeah.
But some people do not have that healthy fear to say, don't make an impulsive decision.
Right.
That, you know what I mean?
It's a conscious decision.
It is a protective factor where we have just enough anxiety. Well, I might have more than just enough, but most people have a healthy amount of anxiety that keep them in the lane. Stay in your lane, abide by the rules.
Yeah.
Some people are impulsive. They can just sell their car, go move here, go move there, uproot their family, move to this state, move to that state, be like, oh, I don't like this house, sell it, move into an apartment, find another house. And they are just that impulsive.
Yeah.
To read the story of what was going on in his life and to find out that he disappeared before.
Yeah.
He did that before. And maybe he couldn't make it.
Yeah.
3 weeks on his own.
That was a trial
And maybe that
run.
was, I was just about to say, maybe he learned some things during that 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he was like, if I'm ever going to do this again, I have to make sure I have X, Y, and Z covered or whatever.
Right.
I'm not going to take the car. I'm not going to do this, that, and the other. So I feel like he'd been thinking about this for a long time.
Yeah.
And what gets me is what a devoted father everybody says he was. To just up and leave your children.
Well,
I can see leaving your wife. I mean, Lori even said, if he didn't want to be with me, he could have just said the word and we would have gotten a divorce. That wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah.
She's like, we had an open line of communication. If there were problems in our marriage that he wanted to walk away from, but the fact that he walked away from his children but people do it every day.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
Let's not get hung up on that.
I mean, maybe he was just faking it to make it. I don't know.
It's tough. It's crazy. And I don't like doing missing persons cases because they drive me insane with all the questions I can come up with. I can't sleep and I'm like, where are they? But now this case is we know where he went.
Yeah.
But
But
why?
why? And his family, like, why? I could not
Oh,
imagine
my
putting my
God.
family through that. And to think, did he see the news reports of himself, people looking
Right.
for him?
Well, I don't know what year it was, but Investigation Discovery did an episode of Disappeared
Oh,
on
okay.
his case. Obviously, this must have been years ago because I read the transcript, and at the end of it, it's like, if you have any information,
yeah.
please. So he was still missing at that time. And it makes me wonder, like, did he see that story
Yeah.
and see his child being interviewed?
Oh, man.
His grown son saying, I know my dad wouldn't have just left us.
Yeah.
And seeing his wife saying, he must be dead because he wouldn't have just left his children.
That breaks my heart.
And did he look the same? Like, did he change his appearance? Why didn't anyone connect? I mean, and he wasn't far from home.
Yeah.
He was so close to home. He was just a state away.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so many questions. But you remember now me sending you this
I
case,
do.
right?
Yeah. As soon as you said he went missing before, and I was like, oh, okay.
This is wild. So,
Yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you
Because
for telling that.
Yeah. So, this was great. Let's do it again sometime, but not this one. Not this one.
Weird.
This one's too crazy. We'll see you next week, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Well, thank you for listening to Cousins on Crime. If you're enjoying our podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating so that other true crime fans can find us.
If you have any case suggestions or just want to say hey, email us at cousinsoncrime@gmail.com. And be sure to follow us on Instagram where we post case photos and information at Cousins on Crime Podcast.